I wanted to comment on the nomination of Robert Wilkie, if I may. Just about an hour ago, or half an hour ago, the Senate confirmed Robert Wilkie of North Carolina as our nation's 10th Secretary of Veterans Affairs. He comes to this position after having served with great distinction as a Senate staffer. He was on the National Security Council, the Assistant Secretary of Defense, as well as Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness and Interim Secretary of the VA. His father, who just passed away last year, was a U.S. Army veteran. Mr. Wilkie has served as a U.S. Naval Reserve Intelligence Officer. Great qualifications, strong qualifications for the position that Mr. Wilkie will soon assume. I'm sure that he has no illusions about it. We certainly don't, but this is a hard job that he has in front of him, a very hard job. The VA has yet to fully recover from the series of events that is kind of collectively known as the Phoenix scandal. The choice program has been a mess from its very inception, in my view. It continues to frustrate so many veterans. And yes, we all acknowledge there have been improvements in the Veterans Benefit Administration, but claims processing still takes way, way, way too long, and providing a claim remains a sore point. And then to make matters worse, our veterans and the field staff are stressed by persistent reports of fatigue and infighting within the VA central office. Some of these reports are as current, as fresh as last week. And think about the folks out there. When you're in the field, really nothing good comes out of dysfunction from the central office. And the media accounts that are out there are suggesting that the dysfunction is unfortunately reaching new heights. So this is a tough time for our new secretary to enter. He comes in to this position with a mess of old baggage to deal with, and that is before he even begins to implement new initiatives like the VA Mission Act and the modernization of VA's IT infrastructure. I think it's fair to say, I'm sure it's fair to say, that we want this secretary to succeed. Alaskan veterans certainly want this secretary to succeed. I would imagine that we all want the new VA secretary to succeed. And I think success at the VA means one thing, and that is how we serve our veterans. We know the sacrifices that they have made to our nation. They deserve timely, high-quality, caring service. They do not deserve to fall victim to the kind of internal infighting that has plagued the VA and by all accounts continues to plague the VA. I think that as I look to how success will be achieved for Mr. Wilkie in this new position, it's going to be all hands on deck, everyone committed to the mission, ready to get to work to get the VA back on track. That's really job number one. And that, to Mr. Wilkie, I would suggest means working with your career staff to achieve the mission. We've been doing that in Alaska. Now, it's not always been good. There was a time when Alaska veterans, they wanted a card that would allow them to get their care anywhere. They wanted to get out of the system. Now I hear all the time in Alaska that our veterans, they want to get their care from the VA. And we all know that not all VAs around the country are equally situated. Perhaps the Alaska VA works better than some, and there may be reasons for that. I think one of the reasons is that we're seeing that the career staff in Alaska, they care about our veterans. We've had our problems. We've had some significant problems at the top. There have been changes in the VA's senior leadership in Alaska, but we called the problems out. We brought attention to them, we demanded change, and change occurred. And today we've got a leadership team that by all accounts is doing some pretty strong work for Alaska's vets. And one of the reasons that I think we're doing well is our senior leadership team works in close collaboration with the career staff. They're represented by the American Federation of Government Employees Local 3028, I know this because my staff and I meet with management and labor periodically throughout the year. Management knows that I'm going to get the straight scoop from labor, and labor knows that, in my view, it's all about service to the veterans. No exceptions, no excuses. I just want it straight. And both sides know that I expect them to be collaborating, to be working together. And both know that I measure the quality and the quantity of collaboration in the oversight of VA service delivery in Alaska. And that's why I have been especially disturbed by the VA's recent order restricting the amount of official time that the duly elected representatives of the VA's workforce can spend on collaboration. They call this official time. I would suggest that this is that time working with management to make the VA more effective. And I would suggest that this is a short-sighted decision. I'm especially concerned that it is being implemented by acting personnel on the very eve of our new secretary's swearing in. We also learned this morning, Government Executive Magazine reports that there is chaos on how this is going to be implemented. And when you think about the things that this new secretary needs, or our veterans need, they don't need more chaos. We don't need more chaos in an organization as complex as the VA. And so working to ensure that there is a level of flexibility in operations. Our managers have a certain amount of freedom to keep a system if it's working. If it's not working, we gotcha. But you think about how important this is, especially in the VA where labor is defined to include the physicians, the nurses, the highly trained technologists. We know full well that these are professionals with very portable skill sets who can take their experience elsewhere at a moment's notice, and we certainly see that in my state where those skill sets are in high demand. So we recognize that Mr. Wilkie will inherit enough problems on day one. He's got to come in to the department. He needs to win the hearts and the minds of those who do the work. And a workforce that is upset, in my judgment, is the last thing that he needs. Now, some may remember that I was skeptical about the VA Accountability Act, which short-circuited the process for terminating underperforming VA personnel. We were told at the time that this would enable the VA to replace underperforming managers. But instead, it seems that we're seeing some pretty strong evidence that it's being used to terminate individuals at the very lowest level. And so I'm concerned that what we may also be seeing is this is an effort to terminate whistleblowers and others who would challenge the bureaucracy in service to our veterans. So I'm concerned about that. I've raised that before. I will raise it again. But Mr. President, I think we all would agree. It's time to bring the VA into the 21st century. Collaborating with labor on the quality of product is a whole lot better than maintaining this contentious, top-down, by-the-book, litigious workplace. So I sincerely hope that our new, and I hope transformative, Veterans Affairs Secretary will take a lesson from the best labor management relationship practices in the private sector, seek them out, put them to work on day one, even if that might mean reversing some of the perhaps well-meaning or maybe not so well-meaning reforms that have been undertaken on the eve of his confirmation. Mr. President, the VA is a people-oriented business. The VA is nothing without its people. And so I just give my free advice to our Secretary-designate. Your career people work at the VA to serve our veterans first. And sadly, I think many are confused about whether they enjoy the support of their senior leaders in Washington. So these are some sobering words to greet our new secretary as he takes on a very important responsibility. But I hope that we are all working together, all working forward to ensure that Mr. Wilkie goes down in the VA's history as a good, strong leader. So I offer my best to him as he moves forward.